Ha! Look at that moron with the great sword. Probably a Stamsork? A Nightblade would never use such a clumsy weapon. This one prefers the dagger. Elegant and lethal, yes?
Yeah, but 200 weapons now give you major berserk, don't they? That's a lot of damage. Hi, this is Khan from Ninja Pulls. Stamina Nightblade is my favourite class. The combat loop is ridiculously satisfying, and lots of people are drawn to the cool assassin vibe, but many are put off because they think it's weak or difficult, or both. Stick around and I'll show that's not correct. Stamina Nightblade with Wrecking Blow is getting some of the best dummy damage right now. The new setup isn't that much stronger than the old one. The gain from Major Berserk is similar to the loss from dropping daggers on the front bar, but sustain is much better, letting us use max stamina food and keep going even in really long fights. Best of all, the rotation is easier to keep up consistently. But forget about the dummy. Content is what matters, and recently I got to play Stamblade in one of my groups, and it's been performing really well this patch and last. Here's a roll hard mode from patch week. Nightblade is so bursty it shoots to the top of the damage list and pretty much stays there. I'm not saying it's stronger than Dragon Knight, it's definitely not, but anyone dismissing it as weak should think again. Sure, this isn't a score pushing group, far from it, but I'm lucky enough to roll with some really awesome players, including some great DKs, and we're having Kratis in the group. So the fact that Stamina Nightblade can still keep up proves that it can kick a lot of ass. Of course, this is just single target damage. For overall DPS, the Azure Blight Necromancer leaves me in the dust, and that kind of cleave is great to have, another reason why stacking DKs is so effective. But don't get too hung up on it. The thing that shortens the fight is damage on the main target, and on that score the Nightblade can pull its weight. You can add more AoE if you need it, we just don't get it for free like Dragon Knights, Necromancers and Wardens, but Twisting Path, Dark Shade and Deadly Cloak are all decent for AoE damage, and with a 200 front bar we get a lot more just from the Forceful passive. This is roughly equivalent to adding another strong AoE dot to your rotation. Speaking of rotations, every patch you guys ask me for a static sequence that makes Nightblade more accessible but still hits big damage numbers. I always do my best to comply, but this patch we pretty much hit the jackpot. A 2H front bar lets us move Carve off the back bar and use Black Rose daggers to boost damage and survivability. Now, everything on our back bar except Path is 20 seconds. Shade is 22, which is close enough, and that makes it way easier to stay on top of all these dots in combat. You do have to recast Path and Carve dynamically, as well as your ultimate, but I'm still calling it a static rotation since it's about as close as we can ever get with this class. Of course, if you miss a lot of light attacks, the static sequence may come off the rails, and you'll have to think on your feet for a while, but that's fine. You can also deviate from it deliberately to optimize your pre-buff, or respond to a Pillager's support ult, but that's totally optional. Also keep in mind that this setup is now heavily dependent on damage modifiers. We've got a 10% boost from Major Berserk, another 10% boost from Concealed Weapon, and a 6% boost from the Black Rose daggers. That's a great way to circumvent the new cap on light attack damage, which is still boosted by these modifiers even after it hits the cap on stat scaling, but it also means that our damage is not inherently that high. It relies on all these modifiers remaining active, so keep them up. Don't panic if they're down for a second or two. The Concealed Weapon buff lasts 5 seconds, so as long as you don't spend too long on the back bar or let Path expire for that long, you should be good. Spectral Cloak also lasts 2 seconds after the last tick of Deadly Cloak, so you have a little breathing space there as well. Wrecking Blow also grants Major Berserk for 5 seconds, which generally makes it pretty easy to stay on top of the buff. All you need for a pre-buff is Focus, Shade, Shooting Star, and you're good. Here's what I try to do in content. Pre-buff with Relentless Focus, Shade and Cloak, then Shooting Star, Trap, Path, Wrecking Blow to get Major Berserk going right away, Assassin's Will if it's ready, Carve and Debilitate. Then everything's up. You're in the midpoint of the rotation already and can just keep up the 5-second rhythm. 4 spammables, then a light attack into Assassin's Will with a slight pause to let the 5th stack register before firing it. If you have high ping, or you struggle to get this every time, you can just do 5 spammables, then a bow proc. You'll only hit 3 bow procs per rotation instead of 4, but it's not a big deal, and you can use Concealed Weapon instead of Wrecking Blow when you need to bar swap at the end of the sequence. Keep an eye on your ultimate if you can, and try to make sure all dots are up when it comes around, as well as Major Berserk. If you do need to refresh one dot during the burst phase, go for it, but no more than that. If you get a Pillager's proc at the start of the fight, you will need to juggle your dots a little bit and hit a couple of incapacitating strikes pretty much back to back, or you can just wait and use Shooting Star a second time. If there are adds in the fight, that's a good idea. Other than the first couple of sequences where I get my dots to line back up after the pre-buff, the static rotation is surprisingly consistent. That makes it easy to keep up Major Berserk, which is the only reason we're using this spammable in the first place. Wrecking Blow deals nice damage, but the dual-wield passives, specifically Dual-Wield Expert and Twin Blade and Blunt, are so valuable that without Major Berserk, a 2H front bar wouldn't be worth it. Keep that in mind, and if you're in a position to use Sea Serpent's Coil, or you have enough sorcerers in your group that you're getting a decent Berserk uptime from the Atronach, then switch back to a dual-wield front bar and you should get a bit more damage. Always adapt. This setup isn't just for the dummy, in fact it works pretty much anywhere, but that doesn't mean you should stick to it blindly. Carve and Debilitate are both really strong, but if you find that they're overcomplicating your rotation, try ditching them and see what happens. Carve also becomes less valuable the shorter the fight, unless you're using the shield for survivability. Once you hit 33%, Killer's Blade overtakes Wrecking Blow and becomes your primary spammable. But you want to keep up Major Berserk if you can until about 20%. After that, just use Killer's Blade and start letting your dots expire. After 15%, only recast Cloak, Trap, and Path. In longer fights, you can keep casting your other dots if they will run their full duration, and especially if you're running out of stamina. In really long executes, you may even want to keep firing bow procs to give your stamina a break. Recast your 3 main dots before 10% if necessary, and then don't cast anything but Killer's Blade and Incapacitating Strike until the target is dead. I'm pretty happy with this rotation. Like I said, not a huge increase, but we'll take it. I hope it helps you guys get some higher numbers with Stamina Nightblade, and maybe encourages some of you to dust off this class and have a stab at it. The mini guide is linked in the description, and you can join the Ninja Balls Discord if you have any questions, or use the comments section. You can also tell me which DPS class you'd like to see here next. If you like this video and the content in this channel generally, please let YouTube know. The best way to support the channel is by subscribing, and sharing our videos with other players who might appreciate them. Thanks for watching.